Luke, do you have everyone behind me in the shot? All right, we're rolling. Good afternoon. I'm Jenny Beth Martin with Tea Party Patriots Action and the Only Citizens Vote bus tour. And we are on the state capitol steps in Montgomery, Alabama. And we have gone from California all the way to Alabama. And this week we'll be ending in Raleigh, North Carolina, before we start again on Labor Day in Wisconsin, finishing on September 10th in Washington, D.C. Today we're going to hear from a couple of state representatives and then a few people who live here in Alabama. And the speakers will be ending it with Congressman Gary Palmer, who will be arriving in a little while. He was at another event, so we'll be hearing from him as he arrives. We are doing the citizen-only vote bus tour because we want to see Congress pass the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act requires proof of citizenship to register to vote. And it is a pretty simple bill that has passed the House of Representatives twice, once in the last Congress and once in this Congress. However, it still has not been taken up in the United States Senate. So we want to see the Senate take it up and for it to be passed. Because it requires 60 votes to get over the filibuster rule in the Senate, we suspect that it needs to be attached to what's considered must-pass legislation. This is legislation that members of Congress will vote for because they are afraid if they don't vote for it that their constituents will think they've done something that it'll affect them negatively with their constituents. So we see this happen when government funding bills come into play. Politicians do not like shutting down the federal government. Now, I personally am okay with shutting down the federal government from time to time, but I've learned politicians are not, and elected officials on Capitol Hill especially, most of them are not. So they're going to vote for legislation that they think they must vote for so that they don't shut down the government. Since that's going to be happening in September, before the beginning of our next fiscal year, which is on October 1st, that begins the United States government's the 2026 fiscal year begins on October 1st. They'll be voting for either appropriation bills or a continuing resolution or some other funding mechanism bill. And we are asking that they attach the SAVE Act to that bill so we can pass it into law. And that is the goal of this entire tour. Now, some people may be going, well, wait, it is already illegal for non-citizens to vote in United States elections. And that is absolutely correct. It is illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. The problem that we have right now is twofold. One, there are some states, not Alabama, but there are some states that allow non-citizens to vote either in state or in local municipal elections. So there are people who are non-citizens in those states who are indeed voting for their state and local elections. That means they are getting registered and they're on the registration rolls. Then the other situation that we have is that in the state of Arizona, they have required proof of citizenship for a very long time. It makes sense. Arizona is a border state, so they've required this proof of citizenship. They were sued, and the Supreme Court said that they must accept the National Voter Registration Form. And that form is what we think of as a motor voter law. The motor voter law form has a simple check mark that people check that affirms their citizenship. And the Supreme Court said that the states must accept that form, whether they show proof of citizenship or not. And the form does not require proof of citizenship. So the way Arizona handled it is that if you require proof of citizenship, you get a ballot with every single office on it, from president all the way down to school board or the most local elected office. If you have not shown the required proof of citizenship, you still get to vote, and you get to vote for president, U.S. Senate, and U.S. Congress. They call that their federal-only ballot. So either way, whether you show proof of citizenship or not, you can vote for president, Senate, and Congress. 87% of Americans say that only American citizens should vote in American elections for president, Senate, and Congress. And 87% of Americans support requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote. It's pretty common sense. People get that this is a common sense solution that we need to have in our country. We need to clean up the National Voter Registration Act, and that is what the SAVE Act does. So that's why we're here, and at the end we'll have calls to action for people to get involved and be engaged so they can take further action as we round out this bus tour, finish it up and end in Washington, D.C. Now today we're going to hear from a few state reps, and also we will hear from Congressman Gary Palmer in a little while. The first state representative that we're going to hear from is the vice chair of the Republican caucus of the Alabama State Representatives. His name is Chip Brown, and we're going to hear from him now. Representative Brown.
Thank you. You know, I want to welcome Only Citizens Vote to Alabama. It's great to have you here. There's no more important issue to our republic than having safe and secure elections. And to me, Alabama has led the way in this. You know, we started requiring identification, driver's license, or government IDs to vote in 2013. We, in 2020, passed an amendment, Amendment 1, with 77% of the population crossing party lines, Republican and Democrat, voting, that said that only citizens, U.S. citizens, could vote in Alabama. And that's across the board, all elections, local elections, county, state, federal elections. So along with that, our Secretary of State, Wes Allen, also went in and purged the voter rolls of non-citizens, several thousand. And Ford, he was attacked by the Biden administration, tried to take him to court. Fortunately, President Trump came in and settled that situation. So the SAVE Act, to me, is very crucial, because if you look back historically, by 1926, every state had laws on their books that required only citizens were eligible to vote. And over the years, states have chipped away at that. And one of the ways that they've chipped away at that is actually through the Motor Voter Act, and not requiring proof of citizenship, not requiring IDs. It's, you know, as a matter of fact, I have a niece that used to live in New York. She finally moved. And her first election as a citizen of New York, went to vote and showed her ID, and they laughed at her and said, "You don't need that here. We don't do IDs here," like it was a backwards thing. But in reality, those states that don't require proof of citizenship, don't require ID, you're opening yourself up to massive fraud potential. And as we move towards the midterms, I think it's essential that states like Alabama call to these other states and ask them to do the same thing. Call to these U.S. senators. Fortunately, in Alabama, we're blessed that we have 2 freedom-loving senators in the U.S. Senate. But call to each of, if you're out there listening and watching, call your senator and ask them to support the SAVE Act. It's crucial as we move into the midterms and then beyond. If we don't have safe and secure elections, then what do we have? What does our republic stand for? It's all about trust. It's trust in the fundamentals of government, trust in the people that run the government. And if you don't have people that you trust who are elected fairly and securely, then we don't have a republic really at all. And I want to thank you once again for coming. Alabama stands with you. And as representing the House Republican Caucus, I'm Chip Brown, and I appreciate you coming, and I support you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Brown. And I appreciate the fact that you are here in supporting this effort and that your state requires proof of citizenship. It's not a complicated issue, and yet we still have to do work to get this bill over the finish line in Congress. Next, we are going to hear from State Representative Arnold Mooney, who is the Vice Chairman of the Constitutional Campaigns and Elections Committee in the State House.
Thanks, Jenny Beth. I'm not going to belabor the things that Chip shared with you. They're all true. We have a Constitution Campaign and Elections Committee in our State House for the very purpose of protecting our rights and privileges. You know, when you look at what we're talking about, I just put a few notes down The argument for restricting voting in the United States, state, and local elections to citizens centers on several things: sovereignty, legal accountability, the social contract. Citizens have a vested interest in what goes on in their state, nation, local area. We also have responsibilities. We have to serve on juries. We have to, at times, be a part of military service. Legal residents and people who aren't legal residents have no responsibility to that. They can leave our country. If they vote in an election, they don't have to stand by the consequences of it. We as a people need to believe sincerely that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, as we've all heard growing up. And we need to be committed to the concept that citizens come out and vote and participate in elections and put people in positions to support the whole concept of the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act is a great bill that's been passed twice in the House, as you've said. We need to have it make its way on through. I hope we'll see President Trump put his support behind it. But again, just simply saying we support it here in Alabama, we're thankful for it, and we appreciate you being here as a part of your national tour, and we wish you the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And next, we have a man who is a business owner. He runs Patriot Fuel Center, and he also has Walker Cattle Company. His name is Rodney Walker.
Thank you, Jenny Beth. I'm very proud to be here today. My name is Rodney Walker. I'm from Lineville, Alabama, and I'm running for U.S. Senate as a Republican candidate for the great state of Alabama. I would like you to know that I firmly support the SAVE Act, and I firmly support this group that's here today of Only Citizens Vote. As a grandchild and a child of veterans, World War II veterans, my forefathers fought for this great country and fought for us to have the right to vote. There's no reason that anybody should be here that's not a citizen that should be allowed to vote anywhere in the United States. So as your next senator, I would pledge to you that I would support this act if it came around and not passed in this legislative session now. I want to commend Katie Britt and Tommy Tuberville for the work that they're doing, and I'm very proud to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rodney. All right, now we're going to go to Marissa Hamilton. She's going to explain a little bit more about what's happening in Arizona. She's from a group called AZ Easy. It's a grassroots group based out of Phoenix, Arizona, and she supports the entire state. Did I get it backwards? AZ Easy or Easy AZ. And she's going to describe some of what they've encountered in Arizona, why it's so important that we pass this act, and then also give some calls to action for Tea Party Patriots Action. So come on up, Marissa.
Thank you so much, Jenny Beth, and thank you to all of the representatives that have been here today. My name is Marissa Hamilton. I am from Arizona, as Jenny Beth said, and my organization is called easyaz.org. Now, in Arizona, we've worked very hard to make sure that we have proof of citizenship, but the radical left came after our state, and unfortunately, the Supreme Court ruled against us, saying that non-citizens, that people that do not show proof of citizenship can register to vote on the federal registration form, and that would allow them to be able to register to vote without proof of citizenship. Now, what we found in Arizona, that this has created the ability for non-citizens to slip by onto our voter rolls. So even though it's illegal for non-citizens to vote, there's a mechanism within our state that where our recorders are not able to see the proof of citizenship. If it comes through the motor vehicle division, all they can see is a little check mark in the system. And that system has been found to have glitches. And in fact, last year we found that there was over 200,000 people registered to vote that were longtime voters in Arizona that had not shown their proof of citizenship documentation. And so they worked really hard to fix the glitch, but now we see that the glitch is still in place and that there are still non-citizens registered to vote currently right now in the state of Arizona. And so with Arizona being so diligent on making sure that only citizens are able to vote, if things like glitches can happen where you can be glitched out and have your vote replaced by someone who's a non-citizen, it can happen in every state. And so I urge you to call your members of Congress and call your call your U.S. senators to make sure that they pass the SAVE Act. And so I did a little bit of homework on your state, and your Senator Tommy Tuberville, he is actually a co-sponsor of the SAVE Act. I'm so excited about that. I'm a big fan of his. He's a great guy. I got to meet him in Arizona previously. But your other Senator, Katie Britt, well, I'm pretty sure that she supports the SAVE Act. She's not a co-sponsor. So one of the things that you can do is you can call both of these senators and ask them to get all of their friends in the Senate to vote and make sure that they are supporting this bill. And so Tommy Tuberville's number is 202-224-4124, and Senator Katie Britt is 202-224-5744. There are some other things that you can do also. You want to go to demandonlycitizensvote.com. Again, that's demandcitizensonlyvote.com. onlycitizensvote.com, and sign up to get involved. You want to go to the Get Involved section, and there's a lot of items on there that you can do on your own to make sure that that citizens are getting involved. You can sign the petition. You can make sure that you can hold a local rally. You can hold a local pie and ice cream event or a coffee event and invite people over and have them sign the petition. There's a number of activities online that you can do. You can even sign up through to text your friends that are in your area that you know and ask them to sign the petition. We want to get stacks and stacks of petitions so that on September 10th, when we're down in Washington, D.C., we can make all of your voices loud and clear that we want proof of citizenship to vote in every single state in America. This is a fundamental right. It is something that so many people have sacrificed, even given up their lives, for us to have the precious right to vote. And at a minimum, we can require that only U.S. citizens are able to vote in our elections nationwide. So go to demandonlycitizensvote.com and get involved. Your voice will make a difference, and it can be the difference maker for us to pass this on must-pass legislation in the Senate. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Marissa. And Congressman Palmer should be here in about 2 or 3 minutes. He's on the way right now. I am going to go through a few of the things that people have asked with questions as we've been doing this tour. One of the things people say is, well, they're just shocked that we have to do this. So this requires a law, and that it's common sense. We should already make it where only citizens can vote. And I think that I've explained why we have to go through and do this. It's because of the way the motor voter form is handled right now. President Trump is working to modify that motor voter form, the National Voting Right Act form. And that will happen through executive order. And I appreciate that and applaud that. And I think we all appreciate that and applaud that. What concerns us, and the reason that we still want the SAVE Act to be passed into law, is that if it's done with an executive order, it can be undone with an executive order. So it's very good while he is in office, but another president could come in and then wind up undoing it. So we want to codify this. We want to codify all of his executive orders, and this is a step that we can take to help codify that particular executive order. Then another thing that we have heard from people along the way is, well, why isn't the United States Senate going ahead and taking this up? And I would like the United States Senate to go ahead and take it up. What we run into is that we have, it requires Democrat votes to get past the filibuster. And if they don't have those Democrat votes and Leader Thune brings it up to the floor, it's going to be an exercise, and it'll be more like a messaging exercise where we see who's for it and who's against it, but we don't actually get it passed into law. And while there's a time and place for those kind of messaging bills, when we have so many of President Trump's nominees who still need to be confirmed, it makes sense to use the Senate calendar to get as many of those nominees confirmed as we possibly can, and then to attach this to something that they must pass, that they'll be debating and voting on anyway. And then another question that we've had is, why isn't this attached to the One Big Beautiful Bill? The One Big Beautiful Bill did bypass the filibuster. It used a process called reconciliation. That process allows the Senate to pass items that are related to the budget, that have a budgetary impact, to be passed passed into law, and it bypasses the filibuster. However, this bill is a policy bill. It's not a budget bill. So it could not be attached to that reconciliation bill or the one big beautiful bill. And that's really what prompted us to say, okay, well, if it can't be attached to the one big beautiful bill, what can we attach it to get it to pass? And we figured that as we head into September with either appropriations or continuing resolutions or an omnibus, we should be able to get it onto one of those bills. And that's why we set the timing of this bus tour the way that we have. And now we have Congressman Gary Palmer, who is joining us, and he's from the great state of Alabama. So come on up, Congressman Palmer.
Thank you, Jenny Beth.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenny Beth, for inviting me to speak on this. I'm an original co-sponsor of the SAVE Act. I had introduced a bill that would allow states to require proof of citizenship. Chip Roy came to me and said, look, why don't we require the states to require proof of citizenship? So I pulled my bill and co-sponsored his. I think it's critically important for securing our elections that we only allow people who are qualified to vote in our elections. And this is a major step toward that. Hopefully we can get it done in this Congress. And then there's some other things that we're working on, Jenny Beth, that I think will also help us secure our elections, including dealing with the mail-in ballots, which I don't think our founders ever anticipated us having this kind of almost wide open, no holds barred type elections that I really think cost President Trump the 2020 election. And it is undermining confidence in the American public's view of our whole process. So this is a critical piece of legislation. I really appreciate Chip Roy coming to me and saying we need to take this next step. And hopefully Senator Thune, with his leadership, and I think he's done a good job so far, can get this to the floor and we can get it voted on. And I think it's really going to tell you a whole lot about where Democrats are in terms of election integrity, that they will not support a bill that is so simple that says only a citizen should be able to vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for being here, and you're absolutely right. It'll show us where Democrats stand when it comes to an issue that 87% of Americans agree on, and that over 70% of Democrats and it's actually over 75% of Democrats and independents agree on. American citizens are united on this issue, and it's time for our elected officials to do what unites Americans and the right thing for the country rather than playing partisan politics. And with that, we're going to close out this press conference in Montgomery, Alabama for the Only Citizens Vote bus tour. We will be on the road again and in Atlanta, Georgia at the state capitol tomorrow at noon, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much.